For Splodinator.com, I'm Noobs. Well, as always, we're late with the news again here at Splodinator, but I did feel I had to get in the studio and chat a little bit about the shocking, sudden, and really tragic news of course, Nintendo President Satoru Iwata's passing. We had known he was sick for at least a year, but I think this was a surprise to everyone, even at Nintendo. He had just completed a meeting with investors, although he had missed E3. He was, though, apparently working right up till the end. So obviously this is very sad news. I had my disagreements with the man over the years, but there's no denying that the guy was a legend and a visionary. So I wanted to talk a little bit about his work with Nintendo, and then we'll talk a little bit about what this means for the company going forward. So, of course, Iwata started out as a programmer back at HAL Laboratories, where he worked on Kirby, Balloon Fight, Earthbound, which he apparently totally rescued that project. Eventually, he was handpicked by Yamauchi to come to Nintendo, where he started out as head of corporate planning for a few years before Yamauchi selected him to be president of the whole company. It was during that time, kind of mid-GameCube, that Iwata came in. He started all these sort of experiments, initiatives with the GameCube, weird add-ons, microphone, bongos. Even the Wiimote was at first a GameCube accessory, right? So it seemed that Iwata had a very different, non-traditional vision for the company. He had this whole blue ocean strategy that he wanted to pursue, bringing gaming to the masses, targeting demographics outside the traditional gamers. And you know what? He did better than I think anyone could have ever imagined. He absolutely changed the industry forever. So really, I think you can attribute a lot of the DS and the Wii's success to his vision. And, maybe you weren't a fan of those sort of casual games and some of the things he did with the company, but you can't deny that the man was a visionary. Really, the whole touchscreen thing with the DS, that really was people's first introduction to touchscreen gaming, arguably kicked off the whole phone gaming phenomenon, which in some sense has been Nintendo's undoing in recent years. Of course, he was much more than a corporate suit to people, particularly thanks to Iwata Asks and the Nintendo Directs. He really made himself the face of Nintendo. He kind of took away some of the role of journalists in the industry covering Nintendo. Very likable. Those Iwata Asks are just an incredible treasure trove of information. Really, history of the medium buried in there. I'd love to see them compile those into some kind of commemorative book or something. Really a remarkable guy, and I think that's a lot of why you've seen such an outpouring, especially from fans, is that Iwata was so much more than your typical corporate suit, right? He was Mr. Nintendo for people. And, it's no secret that I've had my disagreements with Iwata over the years. It was early on when he started out in that corporate planning position that Nintendo let Rare go. He probably had a hand in that, and certainly once things got started with the Wii, he really let most of Nintendo's Western support just slip away. He really brought things internally and into Japan specifically for the company. So I think that ultimately that really hurt them. And at the lowest point of the Wii U and the 3DS, I called for him to be fired. But frankly, at this point, I was really supportive of the guy again. Very excited with the new initiatives Nintendo's been taking. So I want to talk a little bit about that as well. Of course, right now we've got Miyamoto and a guy named Genyo Takeda heading up Nintendo temporarily. Takeda's like their top hardware guy, so really the top software and hardware guys working together right now. I'm sure that's not going to last. They're going to get a new permanent president in place. If I had to guess, I don't think it'll be either of those guys. Certainly it won't be Miyamoto. I'm sorry, dreamers. If I had to guess, it'll probably be somebody who's not a sort of household name for Nintendo fans yet. Somebody who's high up in the corporate hierarchy, but we're not really familiar with yet. And really, I don't think they'll ever find someone who could truly replace Iwata as that face of the company. I think they'll sort of spread that role out more. So it's interesting to see that Iwata was sort of taking Nintendo in a lot of interesting new directions. I think he had certainly decided after the struggles with 3DS and Wii U that Nintendo needed to reinvigorate itself. And he was starting to do a lot of very promising initiatives, taking the company in some bold new directions, and ensuring its long-term health and success. So I want to talk a little bit about what he was up to, what was already in place, and what appears to be going to be happening in the future as well. So maybe the most obvious one, the one that's most present, is Amiibo. That was a big new initiative, obviously a big success for them, and they've continued to hit Amiibo hard. But there's a lot more coming too. We heard about, of course, the DNA deal, not just heading to mobile, but partnering with them on that Club Nintendo replacement, which I think might also be a bit of a whole reworking of their account system, at least I hope. Of course, the Universal partnership for theme park attractions, however that turns out, that's exciting. And then quality of life, QOL, that whole thing, which I'm not sure if that was maybe just something that's going to be quietly stopped. I mean, we've heard less about it. Maybe it was just something to placate investors at the time. But all of those suggest that, Iwata was diversifying. He was finding ways to promote Nintendo brand and Nintendo characters outside of games as a way of doing that sort of brand management, keeping those characters fresh in people's minds. But of course, the biggest part of all of this, the thing that I'm certainly the most interested in, was, of course, the promise of NX. Iwata had made many vague comments about what Nintendo was envisioning for the future. He never directly connected those to NX, but it does seem that they're all related. So to talk a little bit about that, he had said he envisioned future Nintendo platforms existing, or rather one platform existing as a number of devices that would be able to run the same software or easily port the software between them. His example was like iOS devices where you can have the same games running across, several generations of iPhones and iPads, and maybe they can just be optimized depending on the device. But you can make essentially the same game for a whole suite of devices. It does appear, from everything I can tell, that NX will not be either a handheld or a home console, but rather at least both of those things. Personally, I'm really hoping for games that play just automatically on either one. You buy the same thing. I'm imagining something like 3DS cartridges for the medium. You just plug it into your handheld NX, boom, it works. You plug it into your home console. It's a little more powerful. It upscales it to a higher resolution, but it's exactly the same game across them. So altogether, I think very promising. That stuff is well underway. That is not going to change. Nintendo is dedicated, I think, to pursuing Iwata's vision. They want to live up to the standards that he set and inspired in people there. So it was a tragedy, but Iwata's legacy is, yes, it's partly this huge blow of success of the Wii in particular. Some of it is the disappointment of the Wii U and the 3DS. It's certainly his presence in Nintendo's videos and online coverage, but so much of his legacy really remains to be written. Hey, I'm still excited. I'm as excited as ever, actually, for the future of Nintendo. So let me know what you think about Iwata, the future of Nintendo, where the company is headed, and maybe just your favorite Iwata memories, because there are so many. He was a great guy, a lovable guy, great video presence. And special thanks to Kevin Townsend, our biggest fan, for demanding a video about this subject and inspiring me to get back into the studio. Thanks for watching.